8:59. So there's Yav. What's up, Yav? Yav? He can't hear us.
He's still muted.
He's muted.
He can hear us.
How you doing? Hey.
There it is.
What's up, everybody?
What's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, man?
How are you, pal? Good to see you.
Good, you too.
How's Arizona?
Ooh, it's far away from home. It's good, though.
Are you still there? Or are they sending you out to an affiliate?
No, I'm staying here.
You going to stay here? Nice.
Yeah, I'm here all summer.
They taking good care of you?
Yeah, they are. Everything's good. Everything's good.
The food's good with the Dodgers, at least.
Food's unbelievable.
There you go.
I'm really taking advantage of it.
This is classic, though?
Yeah, no, it's a little different than classic pizza in Massachusetts, but not bad.
Right on. Now you're in a good spot. Have you gotten to spend some time with Kapler?
He's only been around once.
Yeah.
He's kind of bouncing around, but it's pretty cool. I get to do both. So I'm with the minor league guys, and then I'll get to go to the big league rehab side with the guy Stoneberg.
Yeah, and they got a busy big league rehab side right now. I think they had like 15 guys in the DL at one point, didn't they?
Yeah.
Something insane.
A lot, but it's been good so far. Staying
That's
busy.
awesome, man. Glad it's working out.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, let's roll, guys. So you guys know, like, we're going to mute all of you. So when you want to ask a question, you can unmute yourself. But Eric and I were talking earlier, and I don't remember who asked this question, but we're going to start with one that somebody sent in, and we're going to kind of let that go and let it roll everything. And then from there, if you guys have questions off of it, or we can go in different directions. But I wish I remember who this was. I don't remember. Somebody sent in, if you hadn't had Pete and Tony at the start of CSP, what would you have done differently, if anything? Would you have even opened a gym when you did?
It's an interesting question, because the actual interesting part about it is I actually didn't have Tony and Pete when I started up. I actually moved to Boston August 1st, 2006 with 0 clients. We opened CSP July 13th, 2007. So I had actually been in business, so to speak, 10 to 11 months by that point. So when we opened CSP, I actually had a client roster of about 47 people. So I actually did grow it from scratch at that point. So I think that the answer doesn't necessarily change, is that, I still would have busted my butt and done my best to grow it to a point where we could bring on a business guy, bring another coach. And I think it's like any other business, is you're trying to get to that point where you have to actually learn how to scale it. And in the short term, what do you have to do? You have to hustle. You have to be the one, not just doing the training and writing the programs, doing the evaluations, but also being the one doing the scheduling, doing the billing, like anybody else who's self-employed and doesn't necessarily have, the volume of revenues to really justify having those other positions underneath you. So, it just took some time to get to that point. And for me, it was right that, 10, 11 month mark that it made sense to bring those 2 other guys on.
That's awesome. Does anybody have any questions based on that? There's a lot of gym owners in here, so I know Noam and Mike, you guys probably have some questions. So if you guys want to jump in, go ahead.
And you're muted, so.
Or we can.
If no one does, I'll
jump in there. How you doing, Eric?
How's it going?
No, I'm nice to meet you, man.
You too.
I actually own my own studio in New York, and I basically am a sole owner, operator, biller, scheduler, everything. And I've been kind of playing with the idea of, I've been in business I've had my space for 5 years, so it's going to be difficult for me to bring somebody in that's going to be like a partner.
Yeah.
I've already kind of built up my clientele and everything like that, but I run 13, 14-hour days, 5 days a week, and then at least another 8 hours on the other day, and take one day off sometimes.
I remember those days.
Yeah. So I've been doing it like this for 5 years now.
Yeah.
So it's something's got to change for me soon, especially since the business is expanding.
Yep.
So I was thinking about possibly hiring an office manager or something like that, or a studio, but somebody who needs to complement what I do.
Yeah. I love that word. Well, that's very well chosen.
Yeah. It's, so, do you have some suggestions for me, or what you think, where do you think I could do to expand?
Yeah, absolutely.
Myself into the ground.
Yeah. I mean, I think the question I would ask you is, so you're doing, these, 70-hour weeks, whatever it may be. What of those 70 hours is actually interaction with clients, like training them on the floor? And what of it is administrative stuff that you're doing that I would assume that's not the stuff you're passionate about?
It's not. Yeah, it's really not.
How does it break out?
Probably, I'd say about 30% of my day of my week is with clients, and another 70 is doing all that other administrative stuff.
So that's a pretty crazy separation. I mean, I think in an ideal world, you'd probably be 60-40 in the other direction. So I guess the question I would be is, first I would look at is there like inefficiencies in the operation? Is there something that you can do to streamline that process, whether it's online scheduling or something like that, to at least in the short term make that's a pretty hefty split, like 50-50 maybe. But that's a lot of work. And I don't know if that goes into like writing programs on the side and, making calls to physical therapists who are sending you referrals and things along those lines. But that's a pretty big split. So I would tell you that if there's that much administrative stuff, there's probably something in terms of inefficiencies that you can shore up. With that said, I don't think the office manager position has to be something that's like all in or all out. And I'll give you an example. Our Florida facility is kind of different than Massachusetts in the sense that we don't have like a true Pete down there. We don't have just a business director. My two business partners are really strength coaches themselves. One of them's actually a massage therapist as well. So we have kind of three technicians. I have some entrepreneurial spirit. One of my business partners is actually a really good manager. And so we don't necessarily have like that true business guy. So we all kind of have to wear a few different hats, but our latest hire was actually kind of like a hybrid employee. It's actually a female. She trains, she does some floor hours. She does some most social media stuff. She helps out at the front desk and she runs our strength camp. So she's someone who has a master's degree in exercise science, but she was actually in sports communications at Vanderbilt. She was director of social media for the Cape Cod Baseball League. So she can kind of like speak the different languages. She understands how to interact with the players and all that side of things, but she can do some administrative stuff too. So it's one reason why I always encourage up and comers in the industry to like have a diverse skill set, speak Spanish, understand how to do website design, do something beyond just training, things like that. So what I would say is, can you find somebody like that, someone who maybe is able to do the administrative stuff for you in a part-time role, maybe help you out a little bit on the training floor to give you some versatility, especially if you know all the systems and you're willing to take the time to train somebody and put in the legwork up front. Sometimes that can be a great foot in the door for them and, maybe makes your life a little bit easier. But, it depends a lot on like the volume of revenue you're doing as well. If you're doing enough that you can really justify having somebody come in full time, I mean, you can see like some like dentist's office and chiropractors who do insane things in terms of volume just because they have that, really, really awesome office manager. So your business a little bit better than I, but that's probably where I'd start. Get it efficient and then look for that right person.
I like the hybrid idea. I think that's definitely something because they can always also earn more money with doing that training than they will, doing administrative stuff. So it's a
And if you want to go on vacation, an office manager only can't help out with picking some of your sessions. But if you have someone who kind of has that background as well, can go pretty far. So you might reach out to like some local exercise science programs or just, referrals by word of mouth, people in the industry who maybe have like a little bit of a business know-how, maybe a minor in accounting or business management, something like that. So that, they have a little bit of that skill set.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
You got it.
Cool. Who's next? We'll start firing if you guys aren't going to. It's up. Mikey C. He's trying to unmute himself. He's trying to unmute himself.
Oh, I just muted you. Hang on. There you go. You're on mute.
God damn it. Hey, Eric, how you doing, man?
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. So I have a couple of questions for you, actually. First one, when you hit that point, what was the point that you hit where you were like, yep, I'm going to open a second location? And what were some of the factors that kind of fed into that?
Yeah, it's funny. It wasn't like that aha moment where I woke up on a Monday morning and was like, this has to change or anything like that. I think it was something that was always kind of brewing. To give you a little background, our business is very, very cyclical. So if you look at the Florida facility, for instance, December and January, we'll do over 30% of our yearly revenue in those 2 months. So that's the nature of the baseball industry. So you kind of go like gangbusters from really September through March. You have 2 to 3 months of quiet time, and then you go pretty well in the summertime, depending on how geographically close you are to collegiate leagues and things like that. But I think on our end, one of the things that we would see very, very commonly is we'd have minor league guys, who would we'd stand on their heads, do our best we could to really help them, get where they needed to be, get to the big leagues, things like that. And then no matter how good a job we did, invariably they wound up wanting to live closer to warm weather, spring training complexes, wherever their wives were from, whatever it may be, just because it was one less time that they had to move each year. A lot of times guys would come home for the off season, they'd move to the spring training. Then at the end of the spring training period, they moved to whatever affiliate they were. If they got bounced from one level to the next, they'd have to find housing. It's a crazy lifestyle. So one of the things that we knew we wanted to do was we wanted to be close to spring training complexes when we did it, because it was an opportunity to expand our reach. So it was definitely a scenario of one step back to take two steps forward. We opened our Massachusetts location in 2007, and everybody knows what the first, 1 to 3 years of entrepreneurship really are. They're not easy. And so for me, it's been a good back to roots entrepreneurial experience. It's been hard, but, they've been good challenges, and, we've kind of welcomed them and struggled with them just like everybody else has. But, you get past that first year and it gets a lot easier. So there wasn't like that one aha moment, but what I did see is that we had a very strong national and even international reach, probably even better than our local reach is. So it made sense to go there. And what was actually probably the aha moment for me, I'm like, wow, this is a good idea. Like, I announced on like a Sunday morning in July, and we were moving to Florida in September. The facility opened in November, and I mean, my phone blew up that day. Email account blew up. It was literally like a kind of scenario where I had talked to some of our pro guys, and they said, listen, like, these guys all know about you. Like, they're reading your stuff on their iPads while they're sitting in the locker room before BP. They're just not going to Hudson, Massachusetts. And we had the diehards that would come up and, spend entire off season with us and things like that. But there was also a host of other guys that, it was a very tough sell to tell their wife and their kids, hey, we're going to head to Massachusetts for the winter. So Jupiter was a much easier sell on that front. It's also, been good in the context of like some people like to go to seminars in warm weather climates. So it opened up, kind of that demographic as well. So it's been, there were state income tax benefits going to Florida versus Massachusetts too. So you have to look at like kind of the big picture, but, I'm glad we did it. It was definitely challenging, and, we still have, we got 3.5 years left on our lease. So we got to kind of figure out, how we're going to grow it and figure out what we're going to do at the end of that period.
Shooting off something you mentioned there about the ebb and flow down in Florida, what are some of the things that you're filling that downtime with?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's interesting about my schedule, I kind of go where the players are. So I'm in Florida basically mid to late September up until about the second week in April. And then I'm back in Massachusetts where I am now up until I head back there in September. So I'll go back and forth. So for me personally, the downtime isn't felt quite as badly because I'm kind of wherever it's busiest, although Florida is actually busier than Massachusetts right now. So that kind of helps. For me personally, I use it as an opportunity a lot more like working on the business as opposed to in the business. So long-term development, we've got 2 products in the works. Actually just filmed something with Mike Reinold on Tuesday. So we do some of that. Last year, I did a lot of speaking in the month of April, and it actually royally kicked my butt. So I really cut back heavily on my travel. But in years past, like there were years when I spoke every weekend in April just because it drove me bonkers to have a 15,000 square foot facility where we'd have like six coaches on the floor and like 4 athletes at some times a day. So you just learn to manage it and stuff. But it's just work on other projects, plan seminars, work on product development, expand social media efforts. This time of year, there's actually a lot of like human resources type stuff. We hired 4 of our staff members in Massachusetts in the month of May. So we have to kind of go through year-end reviews and compensation stuff and all that. So as much as I hate to say it, it becomes more like 90% administrative and 10% coaching at this time of year.
Yeah.
But it's welcome relief.
Cool. So Pete had talked a little bit about your intern program, and it seems pretty extensive. Do you have a set program for every intern that comes in, or does it kind of vary from individual to individual?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll base this heavily on the Massachusetts program because it's definitely more of a well-oiled machine, but everything we do preparation wise is identical from Massachusetts to Florida. So basically what happens is, we have like the application deadline and all that stuff. So to give you a little background, our summer internship, for instance, the application deadline is February 15th. So everybody has to have their stuff in. Really, we go through all those internship applications in the matter of the first week, and we'll get 170, 180 applicants for our summer internship, which is really like 10 to 11 spots between the two facilities. So my business partner, Pete, and our office manager, Stacy, go through 100% of those. I literally don't even look at the first round of interviews. Only time I get involved on the first round is if like Todd had a former intern of his who was awesome. He reached out to me and said, hey, keep a close eye on this kid. So I forwarded the email to Pete and I said, hey, put an asterisk next to this kid. He came with a really warm introduction. Let's make sure we kind of push him through. So, we probably go and give interviews to 20% of them. You can usually pare back on the other stuff for various reasons. And then, to be honest, I really encourage my coaches to get heavily involved in the interview process because they're the ones that have the most direct interaction with them, particularly because with most internships, I'm back and forth. So I might only be there for part of your internship. I'm here for all the summer interns here, but I'll have very little action with our Florida summer interns. So with that said, once people are accepted, we get our people. The first thing that happens is they basically get started on a 10-week online curriculum. So Frank and Eric and some of the other interns, I think that are on this call, can vouch for it. Our video database is about 800 exercises now. So it's expected that they'll show up at least familiar with all of those. And some of those are a little bit dated and we need to update it and things like that. But I want them to have that repertoire, in the back of their head. And most of the exercises are relatively self-explanatory, like, split stance, anti-rotation, med ball, scoop toss. If you think it out, you can kind of figure it out. And we're not going to beat guys up if there are a couple that they don't remember that first week, whatever it is. But just as importantly, those, 10 weeks also include 2 to 3 staff end services that we've done over the past couple of years that we've filmed, stuff I've put on like elite training mentorship as well. But it can be everything from how we coach our anterior core drills to how we do our assessments to how we coach med ball stuff. And really the last week of that is all about how to build rapport with a client on the first day, getting them set up for expectations of what they're going to have. Then the first day they roll in, we have a meeting before the day gets going. We kind of go through the orientation checklist, talk about, hey, make sure you show up on time. Here are the staff training hours. Here's your New Balance gear. Here are things that we've found previous interns have done well, things like that. And one thing we did in Massachusetts, we have not applied in Florida yet. I think it's easier in Mass because the staff is larger. Is we've actually assigned a full-time coach to each one of our interns. So it's kind of like a mentor-mentee relationship. So each one of those individuals is really responsible for bringing someone along. So what I think it's good about it is someone, they know exactly who they're supposed to go to if they're struggling with something. If they're in a tough spot, a lot of times, all our coaches are kind of like a big team. So you don't really know who's like the superior or anything like that. So short of going into Pete's office anytime, you want to complain that somebody's not sweeping enough or, somebody's coaching with too many internal focus cues and not external focus, who to talk to. So the online curriculum helps them to really hit the ground running. And then once they actually arrive, we want to onboard them as quick as we can, make sure that, personally, I'm also kind of evaluating that first week to know who the ones I think that are the most well-equipped are. Some people are going to have, different skill sets than others. So you're going to have some that are a little bit gun shy and, maybe not as comfortable just jumping right in. You're going to have other people who are like wildly outgoing and can talk to anybody. So you want to recognize who they are and try to get them out of their shells as best as you can. And then we also have staff in services every Wednesday morning. So that kind of brings them along. The first month is heavily technique oriented, coaching. And after that, we can get to more of the sexy stuff and, talk about various things, everything from like leadership stuff to assessments to you name it. But, I don't know if that answers your question, but it's definitely something we put a ton of time into, and it's constantly evolving. But it's one of the things I'm the most proud of. I mean, Mike Roncarati's a former intern. Mike won an NBA championship with the Golden State Warriors. He's with Atlanta now. A former intern of ours at UConn actually just took over his job in Golden State. It's doing great there. Like Eric Otter just took director of performance for the Memphis Grizzlies. So it's awesome to see guys out doing amazing things. And I mean, they become really professional colleagues, not interns anymore. So they're people I lean on for ideas. And I was just texting with Frank about trying to get one of our pro baseball players in with him this offseason too. So selfishly, it helps me create a really good network.
That's great.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
No worries. The other thing that we have that I think is really, really good that I use all the time. I don't know if you've had like a big class of interns, but we have a closed Facebook group. It's the CSP intern community. It's probably 140 people or so right now. And you'll often see, like this morning, someone popped on and was like, hey, does anyone know of a good massage therapist in Cleveland or something like that? So it's a really good resource for our guys to find referral sources, but also like if you have a client, a patient, whatever that stumps you, you can post it there, and there's always ideas, seminar updates, job postings, things like that.
Very cool.
I'd piggyback on Eric with that for a second with the whole internship, the preparation for it. The 10-week process of getting into the program, like every Wednesday, I think it was every Wednesday morning, we got the email. So we knew like we needed to know this for the next week, because if you fell behind, forget about it. So it was structured in that sense where you need to know this in service this week. Next week, we're going to follow up with this. So it was like PRI, then answer your core drills, and then it just followed one after the other. So it was very well structured in that sense.
Thanks. Much credit to Chris Howard for that. We did most of the presenting and stuff, but Chris was the one that actually laid out the curriculum, spent a ton of time organizing it. And we update it on a pretty regular basis, and we have an in-service that we add that we think can really make a big difference. So it's always a work in progress.
That was my mentor, so I'm off.
Nice.
Cool. Who's next? Who has something? Chase, you sent in a question, didn't you? What did you want to ask him? You're on mute.
You're mute.
No.
Hang on. Go. Start over. You were muted. Start over.
You can hear me?
Yep.
I got you.
Eric, I know you were at one point considering accounting way back in the day.
Yeah.
And obviously didn't. But my question was, if you could name 3 books, knowing that you have a business background, whether they're related to training or not related to training, that have been real game changers for you.
Yep.
I guess looking back, just kind of shoot off the hip if you got any.
I think one that I absolutely loved is a book called Decisive by Chip and Dan Heath. And I love all their stuff. They've got a book called Switch, one called Made to Stick. But Decisive was a book that literally I've actually bought it and sent it to like multiple like people in the industry. I actually gave it to one of our pro guys a couple years ago as he was thinking about retiring. Just a really good book to help you make decisions. And it really kind of breaks down like the history of good and bad decisions in the business world. But it was one that really resonated with me. So I like that a lot. More on the physical side of things, Diagnosis and Treatment of Movement Impairment Syndromes, the Shirley Sarman book. She was really the first one to look at like movement diagnoses as opposed to just the pathology driven model. So not rotator cuff tears, think about, do you have scapular depression, scapular downward rotation. So that was a good one. And then, so I got a resources page on my website. So I'm trying to think of the ones that would jump out at me the most. I think I'll give you 2 more. I'll give you one business, one training. I think Movement by Greg Cook was fantastic. That's a little bit more recent than Sarman stuff, and gives you a little bit of a glimpse of like the SFMA and FMS stuff. And I thought he did a really good job with that. And then business, you can't go wrong with How to Win Friends and Influence People. You can get it for like 60 cents on Amazon used right now, and it was written 100 years ago, but it's still completely worth its weight in gold.
For sure. Cool. Appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you.
Who's up? Go ahead. Hold on. There you go.
Hello.
You're good.
All right, cool. Let's see, 2 questions. What are some things that you look back now that you would have done differently? And how did you end up coming up with the systems that you have for how you're interacting with your clients?
Sure. So the one that we would definitely have done differently, and I've probably told this story a million times at this point, but I wouldn't have put my last name on the business. It was just a really bad decision. It was something that made sense when I was a one-man show, but it was inherently unscalable because, to this day, we have really, really qualified coaches that, work between our walls. And, there are a lot of people that walk in and they think that they're immediately going to interact with me. So it's made it hard for me at times to really best leverage my abilities. I'm a very good programmer, I'm a very good assessor. I'm not even sure that I'm the best coach on our staff anymore. I think we have guys that are even better than I So, we'll often have scenario where like a 14-year-old kid who's never lifted weights in his life and, can't even do a body weight lunge comes in and, they almost like expect that they're going to be working with me. And, don't get me wrong, I'll work with those guys sometimes, but I also, don't want to be at the facility at 7:00 every night. I want to try to be home and have dinner with my wife and my kids and stuff and, kind of quote unquote earned that right by now. So that side of it was definitely a big mistake that I made. I think, the other thing is I've learned a lot about management styles. If you've read like Michael Gerber's The E-Myth, he talks about the entrepreneur, the technician, and the manager, and any successful business needs all three of those things. I'm a good technician. I think I'm a pretty good entrepreneur. I've always been like that guy that was the ideas guy. I didn't really think I wasn't a really good manager. And you can be successful as a one-man operation if you're not a good manager. But when it comes time to having coworkers and staff and all that, that's hard. So, I wasn't always really good about understanding the systems that we needed to put into place to create a more scalable business long-term. So, what would often happen is I'd get a text from an agent about a pro guy that wanted to come in. And I'd be like, yeah, no problem. Bring him in. Here's the time we can do it. And I'd schedule it myself. And what I didn't really even appreciate was doing was it was undercutting the fact that my business partner was the guy that did the scheduling, did the billing. So, there'd be times where I'd drop the ball, I'd be going too quick and I wouldn't quote a price or something like that. So, stuff like that, I think is really, really important. You have to realize that you're always accountable to other people, and the way that you interact with those people is really important. Some people on our staff love direct, specific feedback that's clear, concise, and emotionless. Other people, you kind of have to, go A to C and then come back to B. So I've learned a lot about managerial styles. And I think in general, one of the things I still need to improve on is immediate corrections. So when I see something that I don't necessarily like, not bottling it up for a couple weeks and then giving a bunch of feedback all at once, instead addressing it right away. And, I've come to realize that all of our staff members really, I think, want that. They want to know if something's not going right so they can immediately address it. What was the other part of your question? Sorry, I just hit part one.
No, just about like coming up with the systems of how you interact with the people.
Yeah. So the clients in that case, or the staff members. It's funny. That kind of evolves on its own. Pete's written about this quite a bit with like kind of our culture and stuff. And like, we never, like when CP Family first came out, like we didn't even think of that. That was one of our pro guys. It's Oliver Drake, who plays in the big leagues, the Orioles. Like that was just something that he started talking about. And like instantly, like you literally had like guys in minor league baseball that played on the same team who both trained with us. Like one of them did a good job. They'd be like giving out fist bumps and yelling CP Family across the field. Like It was always something that just happened. So, what I think we did really well is we allowed it to happen. We created a culture where people could be themselves and have a good time. We had kangaroo court with our baseball players. We had pro guys that interacted with high school kids and stuff. So it kind of became that third place. You have school and you have home, and we were the extra place. So I think that made a big, big difference in just allowing it to happen. But you also need to learn how to rein it in at certain times. Like in our old space, we had like a 600 square foot office space. So you'd have like 6 or 7 minor league guys in there after they were done training, hanging out, and it'd be so like loud and raucous that my business partner couldn't even take a phone call. So, that was one of the things that we worked on when we went to the new space. We put an athlete lounge in, we put a kind of a lounge for parents in. So you just grow with your business. But I think the number one thing that you always do is you try to really care about people and create a culture where people can have fun and be themselves. Thanks for your question.
Who's up? There's like
Wesley.
There's like 30 people.
Oh no!
I love it how all the dudes that have been on the podcast are like in these like dimly lit like rooms, and they all have like redhead, and she's like got like the prettiest floral background and everything. So, she brought her A game tonight. I like it.
Hey. You ready to go, Wes?
Yeah, I'm ready.
There you go.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever dealt with an athlete or gen pop or whatever that due to injury or throwing a game or what have you has somehow lost their sense of self-efficacy? And how have you dealt with that, if you've dealt with that from a training, psychological, whatever perspective?
Yeah, you certainly have guys that go through tough things. Especially at the professional level, what you see on TV is not always what you see I've been through divorces with baseball players. I've, worked with guys who came into training sessions and they were crying. Like, it absolutely can happen. So, I think our job is a lot more psychological than it is physical sometimes. So yeah, you definitely interact. The longer you've been at it, the more and more it definitely gets that way. I think the other thing is, we see over 100 professional baseball players every offseason. We can do a phenomenal stand-up job, and invariably at least one of them is going to have a surgery each year, especially the way elbows are in professional baseball. All those guys are damaged goods. And, like Sam Fold is one of my best friends in the world. He's an outfielder for the Oakland A's. He had shoulder surgery finally yesterday after spending an entire career running into walls and making diving catches and stuff like that, and they finally fixed it up. So, Sam and I have spent a lot of time on the phone over the last 10 days or so. So, yeah, we spend a lot of time with it. And I think what it speaks to is one of the most important abilities that you can have in this business is empathy. It's important to be able to at least try to walk a mile in their shoes and, be someone who can kind of listen. Like one that stands out to me is Steve Cishek is a good friend. Steve's the closer for the Seattle Mariners. We've trained Steve since 2009. And last year was really tough. You got into some mechanical funks and he got traded midseason. He lost the closer's role in Miami and really, really struggled with it. So he got non-tendered by the Cardinals. So he's a free agent this offseason. And literally, like, Steve texted me an hour after their last game of the season last year and was just like, hey, we got to get this thing right. And so he got back to Jupiter and went out to breakfast, and we just talked for like 2.5 hours and put together like a game plan for the entire offseason. And we didn't talk really training, anything like that. We talked about our kids, our wives, life in Florida as opposed to Massachusetts, all that stuff. And, he put in an unbelievable offseason. He's having a really good year so far. So I think a lot of it comes down to just being willing to listen. A lot of people want to hear that sometimes. I want to say that, I guess you could say.
Cool. Thanks.
You got it. I don't know if I answered your question in a specific enough way or not.
It was very general anyway.
All right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In West, man.
Oh, man.
All right. Who's going?
I'm calling Lori.
Lori Lindsay's needs to ask a question.
Lori's on? Nice.
Yeah. Hi, Eric.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I don't know if I have any specific questions, but I've always been curious. If you didn't work with the baseball population, what would be your ideal population?
I'd probably be president of the Lori Lindsay fan club.
Yeah.
I'd have one of those like those 13-year-old teeny bopper Twitter accounts with like 200,000 followers that retweets all of her and everything. What would I have been doing in the fitness industry or in general?
Fitness industry. Would you choose because I know like you and P have talked specifically about baseball kind of you saw the need for this population and to help them. But if you weren't working specifically with baseball players, is there another athletic realm that you'd be?
I think I probably would have gone the basketball route. That's actually what I was doing a lot of during my grad degree. In fact, when I finished up at UConn in 2005, Chris West, who's actually done a lot of stuff in the soccer world as well, Chris was kind of my mentor there, and he had men's and women's basketball at the time at UConn, and he was kind of approaching me towards the end of my grad degree like, hey, you've been here doing this the last year and a half. What do you think of some of these jobs in D1 D1 basketball, I should say. So I had already started to look at some of that stuff and thought about it. And I worked with a lot of guys who are 7 feet tall. So it's kind of like a unique skill set that you acquire from being there. So I think I probably would have gone that route. And if not that, I might have just honestly gone and become a physical therapist. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Cool.
Thanks.
I was hoping you said soccer, but basketball.
Soccer would have been right up there. It would have been right up there. We spent a lot of time in the basement of Gamble Pavilion at UConn working with the soccer guys there. So it's near and dear to my heart.
Perfect.
So do we have a training question?
That's boring.
I'll ask one. There's
Nice.
one in the thing. There's one in the. All right. So what?
Okay.
What's so between assessing a high level player and an average Joe? Is there a difference when you're doing that and you're writing a program?
Yeah, I think the average Joe is going to have a more general set of issues. The higher level athletes can have a more specific set of issues. They're usually going to have a longer injury history, things along those lines. So I think on my end, I'm probably peeling back the layers on an onion a little bit more and just the conversation beforehand to learn a lot more. Like when I interact with an ordinary Joe, I'm not asking questions about, hey, is your velocity better in the first or the sixth inning? Is it, do you struggle to throw the ball to the glove side? Like, I'm not asking those questions. So I don't think I'd have to pry quite as much in a general population client. And also, maybe you can get away with doing more general assessments, maybe like a classic FMS, whereas that might not be enough when dealing with a higher level athlete. We have to look at quite a bit more. And, you also may have to look at energy systems in certain populations, things along those lines. So I think probably one of the bigger differences above all else, beyond just like kind of the underlying athleticism is how quickly they adapt to programs. You could probably give a general pop person a program, and we wouldn't do this, but, a program that lasted, 8 to 10 weeks and, boredom might set in, but they could still progress. Higher level athletes tend to adjust really quickly. They'll burn out if you don't change things up on them and kind of rotate things and fluctuate training intensity and stuff like that. So, it's easier to coach in many cases, unless they have some really bad patterns they've ingrained, but from a programming standpoint, it can be a lot harder.
So when you let's say you have someone in front of you, do you work big to small or small to big when you're let's say it's a pitcher or a baseball guy? So
in my world, I don't know that it's necessarily general and then specific. A lot of times it's impacted by the flow of the facility. I like to do a lot of shirtless scapula screens and things like that. So usually I'll start sitting down in my office, and rather than have them parade around the facility with their shirt off, I'll just do all that stuff in my office. So it'll be a collection of the two. Like if we're doing that office stuff, I'll look at shoulder flexion, abduction. I'll do static posture screens. Obviously, I'll look at external rotation with the arms adducted. We might do manual muscle testing for the cuff, toe touch, single leg balance, some of the SFMA stuff. And then we'll go out on the floor and we'll do more stuff on the table, then get them up, do overhead squat, overhead lunge walk, things along those lines. So it doesn't necessarily go general and then specific. It just goes with the flow of the facility. And one of the things I got from my buddy Neil, who's the head athletic trainer for the Dodgers, he once said in your assessment, think about it as like Mr. Potato Head. Take the arms and the legs off and just start with the torso and then work your way off. So I think if you do that, you realize that you can do it specific or general, but I think you work proximal to distal, and that works pretty well.
Sure. What about, so say, like an energy systems component for like a pitcher? Like, what do you look at? Like, you got a guy, and he's obviously, let's say like a starter. What do you look at from an energy systems perspective?
Yeah. The good thing about baseball players, and this is going to sound remarkably self-limiting, the good thing about baseball players is they don't have to be elite in terms of energy system development. They just need to be good enough. And you can measure that in a number of different ways. Honestly, you can do resting heart rate at the end of, kind of like the point that you talk and really check that out. So I actually do I'll do their pulse at their wrist, and then I'll actually check it in the externally rotated position as kind of like a thoracic outlet screen. So you'll actually see guys who have a really strong pulse when you test their arm right down their side. You put them up in external rotation, turn their head in the opposite direction, and literally they'll lose their pulse and their hand will start to get cold or go numb and tingling. So that's actually a relatively common thing in the overhead throwing population. And so I screen for it anyway, but as a good rule of thumb, if I have a guy that comes back and we see a resting heart rate above 60, I'm not real happy about it. And a lot of times we'll do some aerobic foundation work no matter what for guys in that first month of the off season. We don't do it with a lot of like steady state cardio. We'll do mobility circuits, things like that. But, more important for me is just they need that aerobic foundation to help with rest and recovery, things like that, as we kind of put in a good off season of work. But yeah, we don't need to do treadmill tests, things like that. Like I've heard stories about like baseball guys doing VO2 max tests on their first day at certain facilities. And to me, that's like a total waste of time. Guys aren't getting hurt for that reason. They're not getting hurt because they're not strong enough. They're not getting hurt because they don't have enough endurance. They're getting hurt because they really lack the right amount of mobility to get to certain positions or the right amount of stability to control those end range positions. And those are the things I'd rather spend our offseason really focusing on.
So I was just curious. I've seen Cooper's test for a closer. I don't know, man, so.
It makes no sense. I mean, there's so many other things that you can really work on, and there's easier ways of assessing it that aren't going to take as much time and impose as much fatigue either. But I can never. I mean, the amazing thing about that is, it's the whole, well, we do it that way because we've always done it that way. Like, I've never in my career, had a guy come to me and say, I really don't think I was throwing hard enough because I didn't run enough. Like, it's not borne out in the actual practice. So I think there are much better ways to do it.
So 100%. Thanks, man.
Yep.
Who's up? We'll call on people. That's fine. Steve, you're up. Fury.
Oh, shit.
That's the first swear. I was promised like 10 F-bombs, and we're like 38 minutes in, and that was the first swear.
There's one.
We just lost our PG rating.
Hey, so I guess I don't have much of a history training with athletes, although we do. I work at Mark Fisher Fitness, so we deal with a lot of dancers, athletes in a different way. But from a program difference, they're not necessarily programmed very differently from everybody else, because sort of they're either on that spectrum or they're younger getting into that spectrum, and they're doing a lot of their specific dance training, in schools and in rehearsals. I guess my question is, I'm just trying to figure out, like, how to have an athlete come in. How do you handle the difference in agenda or flexibility in program from when you have like that emotional needy client, that like you have it could be your greatest program written out, versus like somebody that's got a sports contract, which I also, and very knows and is coming in trusting you for that, versus the emotional needs of a gen pop person coming in and then having to be potentially ultra flexible with that.
Yeah, it's, I was actually having this like exact same conversation with one of our staff members who's kind of like part-time at our facility and then also does some personal training on the side. He's like, man, what do I do when they tell me they want to do leg extensions? I was like, that's what you have to ask yourself. You have to find that happy medium between giving them what they want and giving them what they need. So sometimes it's one of mine, one of yours. I think I'm a big believer in small hinges swinging big doors. I've used that line like over and over again. And if you create a good relationship with people up front to the point that they know you, they like you, and they trust you, then it's going to be a lot easier to get some of your own programming kind of mixed in there. So I think what I would say is you give a little bit more on that front end so that you can get a little bit more on the back end from them, because they're going to keep coming back if they feel like it's not a combative relationship. As you kind of go. But I mean, I see my business partner in Florida is actually really big in the lacrosse world, does a lot of stuff down there. And honestly, like, he has kids that, like, demand to do curls at the end of a workout. I'm like, man, if you bust your butt and you put in, an hour and 20 minutes of good work with a thorough warm up and your sprint work and you're lifting all this stuff, you want to do a couple sets of curls at the end of the day. Like, if anybody's losing sleep over that, they have issues. So I'm more inclined to say give a little bit on the front end and kind of, then just see where it takes you on the back end.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. I think you guys also have a culture that I would assume, from everything I've seen. I still have yet to visit, and I'd like to.
You got to come on down.
Yeah, I've been talking about it forever. So I think you guys also have a culture where can you lean on existing clients who might kind of be poster boys for your success, who will say, hey, listen, this worked really, really well for me. Just trust in the system, things like that. Because I know that's been useful for us, not just in the gym, effective training, but also in terms of like referrals, things like that, guys who come from the same agency or same team, whatever it may be. So if you can lean on some of those loyal clients that are huge believers in your system, a lot of times they take some of those newbies under their wings.
Yeah, we generally speaking, that's probably how it happens about 90% of the time. But then as we're sort of the clubhouse for the misfit toys, we get those special outliers, probably in a little bit of higher number. And those are the ones that, even though they're coming in for it, they're the Soul Cycles, is doing everything for me kind of thing, or, different ends of body image issues, especially with the gay male culture that we have there. It's an interesting thing that comes through, but it tends to be a smaller percentage. But I think we're always having this conversation among the programming team. I'm involved in programming classes, not semi-private, but about, what do we want to give them versus, what they need. And we do try to meet, right? But sometimes it's, I'm trying to compare that to, like, I've got a guy that's got a contract on a team now, and how much flexibility would that person have?
Yeah, it's really hard because, like, there are a couple of things that they kind of jumped into my mind right as you started talking about, like, dancers. Like, one, we know that one of the reasons many times they're successful is because of their congenital laxity, their joint hypermobility.
Yeah.
What we know is if you look at the research, people who have joint hypermobility are more likely to have anxiety and panic disorders. Like it's just the way it works, right? If we have unstable joints, we need more sympathetic nervous system recruitment to create joint stability, make those muscles and tendons fire up. So as a general of thumb, if someone walks in with a health history and they tell you they're a dancer, you look at their health history and they've got some kind of anti-anxiety medication or a history of panic attacks, and then they show you an elbow that hyperextends 30 degrees, there's probably a pretty good chance that they're not going to be, really, really easy to work with. They're going to be challenged on a number of fronts, physiologically and emotionally as well. So there's that side of things. The other thing that's kind of interesting, back when I first moved to Boston, one of our clients was actually a member of Blue Man Group. So he was a guy, I don't know if you guys know, like Blue Man Group, they actually have some pretty astronomically high injuries, a lot of repetitive stress stuff from drumming, the musicians being in certain positions. Not only that, they do a lot of stuff like jumping off stages in dark, so they'll roll ankles, stuff like that. So I evaluated like the whole cast of Blue Man Group, and it was actually a really eye-opening experience, a lot of fun to work with. But one of the things that blew me away is they're such an eclectic group. I mean, you have guys that were like hardcore into it, like mixed martial arts background, couldn't get enough of the training. You had other guys that were like ripping butts, didn't even want to get on the foam roller or anything like that. So it was a very good learning experience for me. Like in a population like that, you have to be ready for absolutely anything. So I'm assuming your day is never – there's no such thing as a normal day at Mark Fisher Fitness on many fronts.
No, I mean, that's the wonderful thing about it. It's interesting. Side note, you mentioned Blue Man Group. Jen Frankel, who was the former coach at Fisher that actually introduced me to Mark, her brother's one of the guys in Blue Man Group in New York.
Oh, nice. Absolutely. Yeah, they're wonderful guys, and it was a very cool experience. But, yeah, I mean, the crazy injury histories on many of them, and then just various backgrounds. Some were kind of like the artsy type, the theater guys, and some were like actually like legit athletes who were super into it. So you do a little bit of everything. So you got to meet people where they're at, just like everything else.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got one from the list. I think Helen sent this in, but I think it's a really valuable question.
She's here.
Oh, there's Helen. Helen, do you want to ask your question shirtless?
I was going to ask a question, but I'm not sure which one.
The three things you do every day. Do you want to ask that one?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't remember exactly what it was, honestly.
Okay. So you sent in what are three things that you do every day or nearly every day, personal and or professional, that keep you on top of your game?
Get up early. And I've learned that. I mean, if you talk to Mike Boyle, I think every email exchange Mike Boyle and I have ever had has been between 5 and 7 a.m. Like, it's just the nature of it. All the successful people I know who have kids seem to get up early. That's changed. I used to write a ton like later on at night, stuff like that. And I can still do it when I need to. But for me, our daughters usually go to bed at 7:30 p.m. and they usually wake up around 7:30 a.m. We actually are spoiled. We get twins that sleep 12 hours. So I know that every minute I get before 7:30 a.m. is a big time blessing. So I take advantage of that side of things. I think one of the things that I try to do on a really regular basis is go out of my way to find means of empowering the people around me. Like in the past, I haven't done a good job of being cognizant, like making sure people realize how appreciated they are and stuff like that. I get caught up in the kind of the mundane day-to-day stuff and don't always, express to people that they're doing a good job and, we appreciate what they're doing. So I've tried to be a lot better about that. And I think one way you can do that is by empowering people. So like I had an evaluation yesterday, really unique presentation, former pro baseball player, retired now, was kind of some history of hips, low back stuff. And so literally Tony Bonvecchio and Miguel and I kind of like powwowed on it. And we brainstormed on, how it was a unique presentation and what we're going to do. So I know that's something like Tony's gone out of his way to tell me like, hey, I'm the new guy. It means a lot when you do that. I never really realized that this was, what it was like to be on staff here. So I think that's important. I think I honestly, like on a personal level, I have to train. If I don't train, I am cranky. Like it's just who I am. Even if I'm tired, something's hurting, whatever it may be, I need to do some kind of movement at least 6 days a week. I know myself too well. So whether that means going down and doing 2,000 meters as fast as I can on the erg while the girls are sleeping, I might do that. Or if it, means actually getting a lift in, like I do usually 4 days a week. So I think those are three things that on a personal level I try to do every day. Professionally, I'm always listening to audiobooks. I'm always going to also be reading some kind of training book at the same time. And then the other thing is just I think I've done a good job of building up a good network over the years. Just knowing that I might not always have the answers I need, but that I can reach out and, call whoever, I want to get in touch with. It's kind of funny. Like I posted a thing on my Facebook page the other day, like, hey, I'm thinking about doing more interviews on my website. Is there anybody you'd like to see? And, we got, 60 or 70 comments, whatever it is, of people. And I was like, there isn't a single person that was listed that I can't get in touch with. So, whether it's through a friend or directly myself, like that was, I thought that was pretty cool. These are all people that I knew and knew how to get a hold of. So I think the networking side of things has been really valuable. And I'm not sure I even did it intentionally, but it's been good for everything from being able to go and observe surgeries to being able to talk to a good physical therapist if we have an athlete that's got a unique case, or if we need to talk to somebody on the business side of things to kind of right the ship if we have questions on that front.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
What's your follow-up, Halen, if you have yet another question?
I did. It's on leadership.
Cool.
I've hired a couple people over the last year and been a pretty shitty leader for them.
Okay.
So I'm curious to hear your opinion and thoughts on what do you think some of the most important qualities you found that you need or essential to be a good leader for your staff?
Absolutely. The first thing I'll tell you, if you have not read or listened to it, there's a book called Legacy by James Kerr. Absolutely phenomenal read. Probably the best book I've read in the last 10 years. I don't know why I didn't recommend it in my top 3 books. Sorry, guys. I panicked and froze. But that's a really good one. I talk about the All Blacks, most successful rugby team ever, really. And they actually kind of had some downtime and didn't do quite as well. And it was because they got away from some of the cultural values that were very important to them. And it talked about how they righted the ship. And it was funny. I had a meeting with some of the front office guys of the Cleveland Indians when I was out in Arizona, and they actually are like huge believers in it. They've got the poster printed out on the wall and everything. So, there's an organization that's in a small market, kind of overachieves and all that. And I think the leadership side of things really speaks to that. So the questions I would ask for you is, did you fail as a leader, or did you fail in hiring people that weren't necessarily the right fit for your culture? So when you have to look at the hiring side of things first. I'm a big believer that you hire for 2 reasons, and you have to have both of those 2 reasons fulfilled. And there's competency and there's fit. So if you look at our internship program, we know that we can teach just about anybody competency, right? If you come and you spend 3 to 4 months with us, we can really make sure that you know what you need to know from a coaching standpoint. And we can also evaluate you. Are you someone that picks things up reasonably quickly and are a good fit for our staff? You're all that. But I think the fit part is really, really hard to evaluate. So you have to make sure that you hire somebody who's also a good fit with your culture. And that's really hard to do unless you've had a chance to interact with them. That's why we hire almost exclusively from our internship program. It's why when a job opportunity comes up at CSP, the first thing I do is I go to my staff and I say, hey, who do we want? We pick out who it is. So like when it was time to hire Miguel Aragoncio, we hired him because the staff said so. When it was time to hire Tony B, literally we didn't even have a position open. Tony Bonvecchio was so good that Pete called me when I was down in Florida. He's like, we need to hire this guy. We can't let him get away. When it came time to hire Nancy, it was the first thing that came up. We decided we wanted to bring somebody on. So I think you have to have a way of evaluating both competency and fit. And that's how you know you're hiring somebody that's the right, kind of person for what it is that your culture demands. With that said, if you're 0 for 2, you definitely have to start looking at, is this something that's coming from me? Are your expectations unreasonable? Were they clearly conveyed in the first place? Did you put yourself in a position where you really set that employee up for success? Were you accessible to them when they had questions? Was there humility? Was it, a boss-employee relationship? Are you guys a team? Just things like that I've learned over the years. And, I've been bad in some of those regards as well. We all learn as we go. But, do you feel like you did a good job hiring in the first place?
No. I mean, I was trying to fill a role or fill a spot, and frankly, didn't know what I was looking for, and didn't have a good system to evaluate people. So it was more about getting somebody in there to help.
Yeah. Honestly, like one of the things that can be helpful too, like I know meeting with Pete here in Massachusetts or even our guys down in Florida, we almost kind of like that. Well, what happens if so-and-so gets hit by a bus? Who do we hire instead? Like we kind of have like this list of people who's at the top of our list. If there's an opening, who do we call? How do they fit in? What specific roles do we want them to fill? Things like that. So that can definitely help, because then you know what exactly you're trying to hire for from a competency standpoint. Like one of the things that we knew we really liked about Nancy, like she didn't have an off switch. She's like the Energizer bunny, nonstop, excitement. Our clients loved that. We knew that we wanted to bring her in part because George, who does our strength camps, his wife was pregnant. And we knew that we were going to need someone who's wildly charismatic, who could help to coach those when George is, basically out for a couple of weeks when his wife gives birth. So like that was part of it. And it was timely because she was finishing up her degree and all that. So there's so many factors that go into it. But I would tell you, make sure that you kind of have an idea of, who do I call if something hits the fan? Like, who do I reach out to if I need to find somebody in a pinch to fill a spot? And also really, really dig deep and check references. There's another facility. You guys can probably guess who it is. I don't know. Pete didn't even mention it. We had a facility, not too far from us that actually hired 2 of our former interns. And they were good people. They just needed to be put in the entirely perfect role to be successful. And this was not the right fit for him. He hired both of them because he saw our internship on their resume and literally never once called me or Pete to ask, like, hey, would they be a good fit for us? And they both left crying within a first month. It was a terrible, kind of relationship. It was wrong for the start. I could have told him this isn't going to work out if he had literally just reached out to me. So we actually wound up referring him another one of our guys, and he was like the best employee they've ever had. He couldn't have been more thrilled with it. So like, if you just kind of do your homework, you do your outreach on the like the reference checking side of things, you'll actually learn quite a bit about it.
Thank you.
You got it, man.
Who's up? We got time for go for it, man.
From a programming standpoint, with concussions being so buzzwordy and stuff like that, is there anything you do for collision sports versus like baseball, where it would be kind of an accident thing, or
Yeah, to be honest, not a ton. It's not something that's happening a ton in baseball. So to be honest, it's not probably on my radar as much maybe as it should be, as if I was working with NHL guys or NFL or anything like that. Certainly I know there's a little bit of research out there that's talking about strengthening the neck and things along those lines. Typically what we're getting guys that come to us after concussions. And really the biggest thing I can tell you about that side of things is just like gradual reintroduction of activities. Just because they feel good during the session doesn't mean they're going to feel good 6 hours later or the next morning. Sam, the guy I mentioned earlier, Sam Fold, actually dealt with some pretty significant post-concussion syndrome and, went to Pittsburgh and saw a world-renowned specialist there. So, I actually learned a lot from dealing with him. He wrote a great article for Gabe Kapler's website about what he went through with post-concussion syndrome and stuff too. So, it's certainly not what I would consider in my wheelhouse, but we have seen it. So I would just tell you baby steps as you work those guys back. But there are definitely people out there that, could speak to the actual training side of things and, how to kind of prevent those things. But we just see them so rarely in our world. Maybe you see a guy every 3 to 4 years on the mound who gets hit by a line drive in the head or something like that. But it's not frequent enough that we can really, I think, do a whole lot to reduce those small instances. Sorry.
Who's up? We got time for some more questions. Don't be bashful.
I got one more.
Go for it. Nice.
Eric, when dealing with younger athletes,
mm-hmm.
what's your approach with the parents? I'm sure you have some horror stories, and I would imagine that, and I think even talking with Tony when he was in Chicago, I think that a lot of what he deals with is, they come to you and they say they have an idea of what their kids should be doing.
Yeah.
How do you address that, and then how do you kind of get that buy-in when they're doing that basic program and building those basic skills?
Yeah, I think I think it's you're right. It's a delicate balancing act because you want to give the kid what he needs, but at the same time you realize that the parents are the one that really are making all the decisions. They're the ones writing the check, and many of them walk in with a a perception of what that kid should be doing. I think there are a couple things that have really helped. I think the first thing is I'm a big believer you need to be able to justify absolutely everything that you put in your training program. So I'm very open about soliciting questions, encouraging questions, things along those lines, and always having an answer for them. And I think the secret is to make it educational, not confrontational. I think historically, as an industry, we probably have a lot of like meathead strength coaches who just want to say, I'll do it my way. You just stay out of the way and all that stuff. But I think you want the parents on your side. You want to make it interactive as best as you can. You don't want that guy that's like hanging out on the training floor, taking pictures of his kid and, yelling over the coaches or anything like that. But you want them involved because they're the ones buying groceries, helping with cooking dinner and things like that. So, I try to engage in them as much as I can and make it educational. One of the things that also has been really, really helpful is just the history of like blog content. Like, when a parent says my kid needs to do more speed and agility ladders, things like that. I have a blog I wrote a long time ago called Make My Kid Run Faster. And it's literally a discussion of all the things that we consider with respect to trying to make kids run faster. Where are they on this continuum? What do they need to work on? So Pete sends that blog out probably 2 to 3 times a week as a link for parents just to kind of get them where they need to be. But, to be honest, I don't know, maybe it's our system. Maybe it's just that we do the individualized evaluations up front where other facilities are maybe just plugging kids into groups and everybody's doing the same program off a dry erase board. I don't deal with that much parental craziness. We deal with, if anything, like the bigger pain in the butt is like, kids who drive themselves to the facility and then the parent decides not to leave a credit card on file. So you send an invoice home with a kid and never gets to the parent. So it's more like administrative, logistical stuff as opposed to like methodological stuff. I don't lose sleep over that. Maybe in the olden days I did, but I can't remember the last time I really like worried about that. That may also because I'm dealing with a lot more pro guys than ever before. And maybe, some of the other guys are handling the high school sides, but even on the rest of our staff, I can't remember the last time somebody came to me and said like, this parent's a real pain in my butt. So I don't know. So maybe Tony saw a lot more of it. I don't know. If so, I should be thanking him for wearing it on my behalf.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, it's 10 guys, so let's wrap this up. So if you didn't ask your question, you shouldn't sit on your hands. But, Eric, thanks so much for taking the time, man. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. That was awesome, guys. We'll have to do it again. I enjoyed it.
Oh, thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric.
Take care of yourself.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good night, guys.
You too.
Hey, Todd.
What's up, Wes?
Hey, we having that call tomorrow.
I'll be on an airplane, bud.
Oh yeah, I saw that email. Oh, yeah. Shit, Mike, you gonna be on that call? We're gonna have to do it on Monday.
Do it in person.
Yeah, yes, we could, seeing as we're both in Chicago. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see you, Todd.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll play Tommy Sticks. Okay. Okay. Well, the mother's sleeping, so I better get to the bedroom. Yeah.
I'm gone.
Oh, that's the best.
You still on this call, are you? Yeah, if I wake her up, it'll be my ass. Yeah. That's why I put on the goddamn headphones. She said, shut that shit off. I said, shit. Get my goddamn headphones. I'm talking to Eric Cressey. The mother knew I was talking like this. Yeah.
Holy shit. Oh my god.
That's your real life. Yeah, it's how I talk. Yeah. No.
Grab a beer one day, man.
Oh my god.
Okay. Well,
we have to grab a beer one day?
What? No, this isn't a beer. This is one of them there Arnold Palmer drinks. Yeah, it's of course, I get the sugar free on.
I said we have to grab a beer, not is that a beer? But all right.
Oh,
thanks for clarifying.
Oh shit! That's the mother. Oh yeah. Oh shit, mother, you there? Man.
Well, everybody's just sitting here watching Westby.
Yeah, she's going number one. She is. Yeah. You better wash your hands before you get back to bed.
Oh my god.
All right, I'm tired, but we'll email about that.
The time and attendance recording line.
What the fuck is that?
Please enter your employee ID followed by the pound key.
Oh, okay. Okay, but we should talk by Monday, right? About all that mentoring stuff.
Yep.
Okay, you stole the show in 3 minutes compared to EC in fucking an hour.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Wes is actually going to be our Q&A guest next week. So.
I'm going to be talking about training pre-diabetic women. Yeah, work with special populations. Yeah.
Hey, Wes, do Bill Hartman talking about sexual positions real quick.
Oh, okay. So Bill was telling us about, he's like, pre-intercourse PRI. He's like, well, you want to close one eyeball, stick one finger in the two hole, one up your nose, and then you breathe out your diaphragm. And then you get half a heart on right before you get ready for insertion. That's a pre-intercourse PRI. That's going to increase parasympathetic tone to your mushroom tips. Yeah, so it is. Get you ready for that pelvic thrust. Then I'm going to have you play with your dinghy until you get a quarter chub and lift your feet in the air. That's good. I'm fucking. I hope so. Chris, did Todd tell you about when me, Mike, and Todd were in the car getting food during the seminar? What I said to them?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I was like, yeah. I stayed at Chris's house. And I was like, yeah, last night I put my ear up to the door and heard Chris having intercourse. It's not really that funny now, but it was really fucking funny at the time. I did not hear any rhythmic slapping, so.
Funny thing is, no one else was home, so.
Oh. Okay.
Just want you to know this is still recording, so.
Yeah, you're gonna put it on that there strength vaccine for educational purposes. Yeah. Yeah, okay. It's gonna help people coach and move better. Yeah. Check this out. It's my cat. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Well.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to bed. I love you guys. Kisses. Bye.
What the fuck was that? That was unreal.
That's Wes.
That's Wes.
That is incredible, man.
That's just Wes.
Wes is the name.
Yeah, texted me during that. He's like, "Is this guy serious right now?"
He's not serious.
He's not serious. No,
but that's Wes.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah,
he's electric.
So, well, I gotta catch a plane in the morning, so I'm gonna go.
All right, boys.
Later.
Good morning, Todd.
See you, Mike.
Get ready for Fat Boy
Mike,
Friday.
are you picking me up or am I getting an Uber?
You're gonna take the train down to Diversey, and I'm gonna pick you up there.
Okay, gotcha. That works, man.
Call me before your flight. What time do you fly?
8:30 in the morning, our time.
Call me before your flight.
Okay, I will. All right. Bye, guys.
Later, guys.
Let's all stare at each other. Okay, good night.